3 minutes to breach, and Marcus Hawthorne already knew someone on his team wanted him dead. The intel had been too clean. General Thorne's briefing that morning laid out guard rotations, structural weaknesses, even the precise location of the rogue Alpha's command center. 48 hours of recon compressed into a manila folder, handed over with those pale gray eyes that never quite met yours straight on. Hawk crouched in tall grass at the tree-lined night vision, painting the world in green phosphorescence. The compound sprawled ahead, converted ranch straddling the North Dakota-Montana border. Technically no man's land. Perfect for rogues, perfect for an ambush. His breath came steady despite adrenaline. 15 years in the Corps, another 8 leading Silver Ridge tactical units taught him to separate noise from signal. Right now, every instinct screamed signal. The radio crackled. Danny Cruz's Boston accent cut through. Alpha 1 Bravo in position. West perimeter clear. You seeing what I'm seeing? Hawk swept his scope across the compound. No guards, no patrols, not even a lookout. Affirmative, too quiet. Way too quiet. They'd served together since Paris Island 2009. Danny had carried him 3 miles through enemy territory with a dislocated shoulder. The kind of bond that didn't need words. Hawk keyed his mic again. Charlie team status. Dr. Sarah Blackwood's voice came professional and clipped. Combat medic for 3 years, engaged to Hawk for 6 months. Out here, just another operator. Charlie in position, south side, no thermal signatures. Building's cold. Cold. Empty. Hawk scanned again this time, looking for what shouldn't be there. Satellite images showed vehicles, generator, supply crates. All present, but no heat signatures. No movement. Alpha 1, this is Overwatch. Elena Rivers, sniper on the ridge 800 meters north. Thorne's protege, pulled from Black Ops 6 weeks ago. 98% hit rate. Hawk had approved her transfer personally. Go ahead, Overwatch. Reading multiple heat signatures in the barn. Looks like, Colonel, those aren't rogues. Size profile's wrong. Too small. I'm seeing children. Hawk's blood went cold. Explain. I'm seeing children, sir, and adults in non-defensive positions. This isn't a tactical camp. The pieces clicked. Not rogues, refugees, or worse, civilians. Someone had fed them bad intel. Hawk's fist shot up, hold position. All teams abort. I say again, dead abort breach. Danny responded instantly. Copy that. Pulling back. Sarah's medical instincts kicked in. Colonel, if there are civilians. Negative, Charlie. We extract now. Elena's voice carried uncertainty. Alpha 1 holding position. Confirming target. Negative, Overwatch. Stand down. This is a no-go. Silence. 2 seconds. 3. Then the world exploded. Elena's rifle crack split the night, 50 cal round traveling at 2,800 feet per second. The barn door erupted. Someone screamed. Not a soldier, a child. Overwatch, what the fuck? Hawk was already sprinting toward the barn, rifle up. His team scrambled to follow. The doors swung open, figures pouring out, women clutching children, men in civilian clothes, eyes wide with terror. A setup. They'd walked into a setup. Gunfire erupted, but not from his team. Spotlights blazed from posts Hawk hadn't seen on any satellite image. Armed mercenaries emerged from hidden positions, not rogues, but contractors, creating maximum chaos. In the barn's doorway lay a man in his 50s, the Alpha, chest torn by Elena's round, eyes already glazing. The civilians saw Hawk's team, saw their tactical gear, made the logical connection. They're here to kill us. Panic turned to stampede. Danny reached Hawk's side. Sir, what the hell? We've been played. Cover the civilians. Do not return fire unless... An explosion rocked the western fence. Then another east. Controlled demolitions designed to look like assault charges. Mercenaries melted into darkness. And cameras. Hawk spotted them, small units mounted everywhere. Recording his team, their weapons, their positions. Recording what would look like coordinated assault on innocents. Sarah appeared at his elbow. We've got wounded. That Alpha gone. Hawk knelt beside the fallen pack leader. The man's lips moved, blood frothing. Hawthorne, you'll burn for this. The words rasped out on the Alpha's final breath. Around them, pack members stopped running. They stared at the body, at Hawk. at the Silver Ridge insignia on his shoulder. Someone was recording on their phone, civilian footage adding to whatever the hidden cameras captured. Hawk grabbed his radio. Overwatch sit rep. Nothing. Overwatch respond. Static. Danny had his radio out scanning frequencies. She's gone dark, sir. Pulled out. Of course she had. This wasn't intelligence failure. This was execution. Elena had put a 50 cal round through an innocent man's chest with witnesses and cameras recording everything. They'd been set up, perfectly professionally set up. Behind them, sirens started authentic law enforcement, not pack security. Someone had called it in ahead of time. Human authorities would arrive in minutes, find federal officers standing over a dead Alpha, and traumatize civilians. Sarah's hand found his arm. Marcus, we need to go. But Hawk was staring at the cameras at the calculated precision. This wasn't about one operation. This was about destroying reputations, careers, lives. General Thorne's face flashed through his mind. Those pale gray eyes. No, we stay. Document everything. Find those cameras, trace their purchase. Colonel, Danny's voice carried warning. We've got bigger problems. Danny pointed to his radio display. Their comms hadn't just died. They'd been pre-recorded, edited. Hawk snatched the unit, scrolled through playback. His own voice crystal clear. Take the shot. I want the Alpha down. Elena's response. Sir, are you certain we have civilians? His voice again. Acceptable losses. Take the shot. Hawk's stomach turned to ice. That's not... I never said that. But the timestamp validated it. Encryption signature authenticated it. Someone had edited their transmissions using voice fragments from months of prior operations. Professional work, intelligence-level work. And whoever did it had access to their encrypted frequencies, authentication protocols, operational records. That kind of access came from inside the pack structure. It came from someone with Thorne's clearance. Sarah had stabilized the dying Alpha enough to preserve evidence. Danny was corralling witnesses. But Hawk knew it didn't matter. Evidence would be contaminated. Witnesses discredited. Those doctor transmissions would play at his court-martial. Because there would be a court-martial. Sirens grew louder. Hawk made a decision. Pack it up, extract with wounded. Danny gets statements. Sarah document cameras. When we get back, I'm going to regional command. His radio crackled. Command channel. Thorne's voice calm and measured. Colonel Hawthorne returned to base immediately for debriefing. All team members, full gear inspection. No stops, no communications. Acknowledge. Every instinct screamed trap. But disobeying direct orders would only make things worse. If he ran now, he looked guilty. If he came in clean, presented evidence, went through proper channels, maybe he could salvage this. This is Alpha 1, acknowledged, ETA 60 minutes. Confirmed, command out. Danny and Sarah exchanged looks. They all knew. 60 minutes for Thorne to prepare whatever came next. 60 minutes to secure witnesses, sanitize evidence, build an airtight case. 60 minutes until Marcus Hawthorne's career ended. They loaded wounded into vehicles and pulled out, leaving behind one dead Alpha, 30 traumatized civilians, and enough footage to bury them all. The drive back took 45 minutes through mountain roads. Sarah gave quiet medical updates on the wounded civilian they brought a teenager who'd caught shrapnel. He'd live, but he'd remember this night. The base materialized out of darkness, converted military installation, all reinforced concrete and chain link. Silver Ridge ran their pack like a military operation. Discipline, order, chain of command, and at the top sat General Thorne, who'd held power longer than Hawk had been alive. They rolled through gates. Hawk's first indication things were worse came from the lack of greeting. No guards waving them through, no medics rushing to help, just silent observers in towers. Danny killed the engine. This doesn't feel right. Sarah was unbuckling, reaching for her kit. I need to get this kid to the clinic. Motor pool lights blazed to life. Hawk's hand moved to his sidearm, then stopped. A dozen armed soldiers surrounded their vehicles. Professional formation. Textbook containment. At the center stood General Marcus Thorne. 70 years old, ramrod straight dress uniform at midnight. Those pale eyes finally meeting Hawk straight on. Colonel Hawthorne, step out of the vehicle, hands visible. Hawk climbed out slowly. General, we have wounded requiring immediate... It cannot wait. Dr. Blackwood, you are relieved pending investigation. Transfer your kit to Sergeant Morrison. Sarah's face went white. Investigation, Sir Colonel Hawthorne did everything. Your opinion is noted and irrelevant. Sergeant Morrison, the kit. A female soldier stepped forward. Sarah looked at Hawk. He gave the smallest nod. She handed over her medical bag. Thorne shifted attention to Danny. Lieutenant Cruz, administrative leave effective immediately. Report to quarters. You will remain there until summoned. Danny's Boston accent thickened. Testimony. General, we were following orders, your orders. The intel was accurate based on available information. What you chose to do with it is now under review. Thorne never raised his voice. You are dismissed. Danny didn't move. His hand inched toward his sidearm. Silent declaration, he wasn't leaving Hawk alone. Hawk caught his eye, shook his head. Stand down, Lieutenant. That's an order. The words hurt to speak. Danny's face twisted, but he saluted, not Thorne, but Hawk, then turned and walked toward Barrick's, shoulders rigid. Thorne stepped closer, hands clasped behind his back. Colonel Marcus Hawthorne, you are charged with dereliction of duty, violation of engagement rules, and conduct unbecoming an officer. You will surrender weapons, tactical gear, and command insignia. You are confined to quarters pending court-martial. Sarah gasped. This is insane. Marcus. Dr. Blackwood. Thorne's attention shifted to her. Your engagement to Colonel Hawthorne is dissolved by PAC law. A commanding officer facing criminal charges cannot maintain personal bonds that compromise testimony. Sarah's voice dropped to something dangerous. You can't do that. We're bonded. You are professionally associated. The bond was never formalized under PAC ritual. Therefore, it carries no legal weight. Thorne produced a tablet, showed Sarah something that made her face drain. These are charges against Colonel Hawthorne, evidence compiled from tonight's operation, recorded communications, witness statements, camera footage, all indicating premeditated assault resulting in one fatality. Hawk found his voice. That's a lie. Those communications were doctored. The whole operation was a setup. I sent you to investigate rogue activity. What you chose to do was entirely your decision. Thorne's face remained impassive. The Regional Alpha Council has been notified. Representatives are en route for emergency tribunal. You will have opportunity to present your version. Until then, you are relieved of command. Two soldiers stepped forward, Morrison and Chen, good soldiers who wouldn't question orders. Morrison held out her hand. Sir, your sidearm. Hawk unbuckled his holster, handed over his service weapon. Then his backup, his knife, the ankle-holstered .380. Each weapon a piece of identity stripped away. Chen collected his tactical vest, radio, night vision gear, everything marking him as operational, as trusted. Finally, Thorne himself stepped forward. Your rank insignia, Colonel, the silver eagles on his collar, the commander's patch on his shoulder. Hawk unpinned each one, feeling 15 years of service condensed into small pieces of metal. He placed them in Thorne's palm. Marcus Hawthorne, you are no longer an officer of Silver Ridge. You will be confined until a tribunal convenes at 0800. Understood. Hawk's jaw worked. What could he say? That Thorne orchestrated everything without proof. Just accusations from a disgraced officer. That Elena fired on his orders. She was gone, probably being debriefed. That intel was deliberately false. Thorne would have covered his tracks. The general was 40 years deep in this game. Hawk had been outmaneuvered before the operation began. Understood. Sarah moved toward him, but Morrison blocked her path. Ma'am, you need to come with me. Medical personnel required for questioning. I'm not leaving. Hawk's voice cut through. Go, Sarah. Answer their questions. Tell them what happened. Just facts. Her eyes found his, communicating everything they couldn't say with Thorne and 24 soldiers listening. She understood. This was systematic, planned. If she fought now, she'd go down with him. I'll tell them the truth, all of it. She let Morrison lead her away, throwing one last look before disappearing into the command building. Chen gestured toward officers' quarters. Sir, this way. The walk across the compound felt eternal. Soldiers watched from windows, duty stations, maintenance bays. Word had spread. Colonel Hawthorne, the rising star. the honorable leader, arrested for killing a civilian Alpha. Chen opened the door to Hawk's quarters spartanly furnished, suddenly feeling like a cell. Chen looked uncomfortable. Sir, for what it's worth, I don't believe you did what they're saying. You're the most by-the-book commander I've had. Something loosened in Hawk's chest. Thanks, Chen. That means more than you know. But I can't. I have orders. I'm sorry. I know. Do your job. That's all any of us can do. Chen nodded, closed the door. The lock engaged with a click like thunder. Hawk stood alone, surrounded by accumulated weight of a career. Commendations on walls, unit photos. Dress uniform hanging pristine. A framed photo of him and Danny at graduation, both impossibly young. And on his desk, face down, a photo of Sarah, taken last month. Her smile genuine, his arm around her shoulders. Hawk sat on his rack, hands on knees, and let himself feel it. The betrayal, the setup, the surgical destruction of everything he'd built. With that was the question. Thorne had power, respect, decades of successful leadership. Why destroy one Colonel Hawk wasn't a threat, wasn't political, wasn't ambitious, unless it wasn't about Hawk at all. Unless Hawk was just a test case. Proof of concept. Demonstration of how thoroughly Thorne could dismantle anyone who questioned his authority. Or maybe Sarah. Maybe Sarah was the real target. Hawk's mind replayed the last 6 weeks. Elena joining their unit. Her constant presence around Sarah, asking about healing techniques, about things unrelated to sniper operations. Sarah mentioning once that her family had always been healers, that her grandmother told stories about powers predating modern pack structure. Old magic, wild magic, things the military hierarchy would see as threats. Hawk stood pacing, 8 hours until tribunal. 8 hours to piece together defense with no evidence, no witnesses willing to risk Thorne's wrath, no way to prove his communications were doctored. But survival had never been his primary objective. He was a Marine. Marines accomplished the mission even if it cost everything. So the question wasn't how to survive. It was how to ensure Thorne didn't get away with this. How to protect the people Thorne would target next, anyone who'd stood too close. Hawk moved to his desk, pulled out paper and pen. If they were monitoring his computer, and they were, he'd do this old-fashioned. He started writing, documenting everything. The briefing, the doctored intel, the setup at the compound, the camera placements. Elena's shot, the pre-recorded comms. He wrote for 2 hours, cramping his hand, filling pages with tactical precision. Facts only, no speculation, just a timeline showing manipulation too perfect to be coincidence. He sealed pages in an envelope addressed to Colonel James Martinez, his former CO from the Corps, now retired in Arizona. Someone outside Thorne's reach. Someone who would believe Hawk even if the whole pack turned against him. Then he waited. Dawn came with footsteps, Chen's voice through the door. Sir, tribunal convening in 30 minutes. I'm instructed to escort you. Hawk opened the door. Chen stood at attention, another soldier beside him. Williams, younger, fresh-faced, both armed. Let's get this over with. They walked through morning-lit compound, night shift ending, day shift beginning. Discipline meant maintaining routine even when the world burned. The command center's main briefing room had been converted to courtroom. 5 chairs behind a long table, regional Alpha Council already seated. Representatives from Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon, and neutral territory. General Thorne stood to one side, face impassive, and opposite, behind prosecution table, Elena Rivers. She'd changed into dress uniform, dark hair pulled back, face professionally neutral. She didn't look at Hawk. Chen and Williams guided him to defendant's position, then took post by the door. Council members studied him with varying degrees of skepticism and disappointment. Alpha Montana Marcus Reynolds, a grizzled veteran, looked particularly grim. Reynolds called tribunal to order. Colonel Marcus Hawthorne, you stand accused of dereliction of duty, violation of engagement protocols, and conduct unbecoming, resulting in death of Alpha Thomas Whitehorse, a Blackfoot crossing pack. How do you plead? Hawk's voice came steady. Not guilty on all charges. Reynolds nodded. The prosecution will present evidence. General Thorne, proceed. Thorne moved to the front, tablet in hand. Screen behind him showed satellite imagery. Council members, what you're about to see represents clear failure of leadership. Colonel Hawthorne was briefed on routine reconnaissance, verify rogue reports, assess threats, report findings. Instead, he escalated to full tactical assault on what he should have identified as civilian refugee camp. The screen shifted to radio transcripts, doctored ones. Hawk's voice damning, "Take the shot. I want the Alpha down." Reynolds leaned forward. "Colonel, is that your voice?" "Yes, sir, but that transmission was taken out of context. I never ordered." "We'll get to your defense." General, continue. Thorne tapped his tablet. Video footage began helmet cam from Chen's position, showing their approach, Hawk giving hand signals, barn doors opening, and civilians fleeing. Then Elena shot. The Alpha falling. Chaos. But the audio had been edited. Hawk's voice overlaid, giving orders he'd never spoken. Directing fire. Calling for suppression. Turning defensive operation into offensive assault. Professional work. Seamless editing. Without original files, impossible to prove manipulation. Idaho Representative younger Alpha named Peterson looked disturbed. "General, what was Colonel Hawthorne's stated objective?" "Reconnaissance only. No engagement unless under direct threat. Intel indicated possible rogue presence, nothing requiring tactical assault." "Then why bring full team with sniper support?" "Standard protocol for disputed territory. Sniper position was defensive, meant for overwatch and early warning. Staff Sergeant Rivers was explicitly ordered not to fire unless Colonel Hawthorne or his team came under imminent lethal threat." All eyes shifted to Elena. She stood moved forward. "Council members, I followed my rules of engagement. When Colonel Hawthorne ordered me to take the shot, I questioned it. My exact words, 'Sir, are you certain we have civilians?' His response was unambiguous. 'I followed orders.'" Hawk's fists clenched. "That's a lie. I never gave that order." "Communications were doctored." Reynolds held up a hand. "You'll have your chance." "General Thorne, what else?" "Witness statements from the civilian pack." Thorne produced a folder. "From Maria Whitehorse, daughter of the deceased. The soldiers came at night. We heard their leader shouting orders. Then they shot my father. He was unarmed, trying to tell them we weren't rogues." Thorne read through 2 more statements, each painting Hawk as aggressive, violent, uncontrolled. Each consistent with the doctored footage. Reynolds looked at Hawk. "Do you dispute these accounts?" "I dispute their interpretation. We responded to what we believed was legitimate threat. When we realized civilians were present, I immediately ordered stand down. Someone else fired someone who wanted it to look like we initiated unprovoked violence." "Someone else?" Thorne's voice carried skepticism. "Colonel, you commanded a 6-person team in isolated territory. Are you suggesting your sniper acted independently? That would be even more serious breach." The trap closed. Either Hawk ordered the shot and was guilty of killing a civilian, or Elena acted without orders, and Hawk was guilty of failing to control his unit. Oregon Representative older female Alpha, named Carver, studied Hawk with possible sympathy. "Colonel, what evidence can you present?" This was it. The moment to present defense, knowing it was tissue thin against manufactured evidence. "Council members, I request access to original mission files. Unedited tactical recordings, satellite feeds, communications logs. I also request Staff Sergeant Rivers submit to formal polygraph. Additionally, I'd like to call Lieutenant Daniel Cruz as character witness." Reynolds nodded. "Reasonable requests. General, can you provide original files?" "Of course, they're identical to what I've presented. Recordings come directly from the team's encrypted network. No editing, no manipulation." "The polygraph," Thorne glanced at Elena. "Staff Sergeant Rivers has volunteered for any test the council deems necessary. She has nothing to hide." "Of course she didn't. Intelligence-trained operatives passed polygraphs reading yesterday's weather. The test measured physiological responses to perceived deception. Believe your own lies, the machine couldn't tell. And Lieutenant Cruz, currently under investigation for his role, calling him would contaminate testimony." Reynolds looked tired. Colonel Hawthorne absent the lieutenant. What else? Hawk fought to keep his voice level. "Request permission to bring in Dr. Sarah Blackwood. She was on site, can corroborate timeline decisions made under fire. She's a medical professional trained in objective observation." Council members exchanged looks. Reynolds consulted with Carver. "Dr. Blackwood will be called. Bailiff have her brought in." 10 minutes passed in tense silence. Then the door opened. Sarah entered, escorted by Morrison. She looked exhausted, dark circles suggesting she'd spent the night being interrogated. Her gaze found Hawks immediately. Reynolds addressed her. Dr. Blackwood, you were part of Colonel Hawthorne's team during Operation Sierra 79er. Please describe your observations. Sarah stood straight, hands clasped, clinical professional. We approached the compound based on intelligence suggesting rogue presence. Upon arrival, Colonel Hawthorne identified discrepancies. No guards, no defensive positions, thermal signatures inconsistent with military target. He immediately ordered hold position while reassessing. Thorne interrupted smoothly. Doctor, did you hear Colonel Hawthorne give any orders regarding the sniper? I heard him order the team to stand down. I heard him say we were aborting breach. I did not hear him order Staff Sergeant Rivers to fire. Is it possible he gave such orders on separate channel? Sarah hesitated. That hesitation was fatal. I suppose it's possible, but that would violate operational protocols. All tactical communications are supposed to go through main net, unless a commander has reason to keep certain orders private. Colonel Hawthorne wouldn't do that, but it's technically possible. Yes, technically. Thorne nodded. He'd gotten what he needed, plausible deniability that Hawk might have used back channels. Never mind, such channels didn't exist. The seed of doubt was planted. Reynolds thanked Sarah and dismissed her. She shot Hawk one last look before Morrison let her out. The council deliberated for 4 minutes, not long enough to truly weigh evidence, but long enough to appear thorough. Then Reynolds stood. Colonel Marcus Hawthorne, this council finds you guilty of dereliction of duty and violation of engagement protocols. The evidence, while circumstantial in places, is sufficient to establish poor judgment, resulting in civilian casualties. Hawk's vision narrowed. Sir, I request. Your request is noted. However, the overwhelming evidence combined with Staff Sergeant Rivers' testimony and recorded communications leaves no choice. Reynolds looked genuinely regretful. This council recommends immediate stripping of rank and discharge from service. Immediate. No appeals, no time to gather evidence, no opportunity to investigate. Peterson raised a hand. I'd like to note my dissent. This feels rushed. Colonel Hawthorne's service record speaks to years of honorable conduct. One incident doesn't erase that. He deserves full investigation. Carver nodded. I concur. General Thorne, your evidence is compelling, but all electronic. In my experience, electronic evidence can be manipulated. I'd recommend 30-day extension. With respect, Alpha Carver. Thorne cut in, polite but final. Regional pacts cannot afford 30 days of uncertainty. Blackfoot Crossing demands immediate justice. If we delay, we risk broader conflict. This council needs decisive leadership. Reynolds grimaced but nodded. General Thorne makes a valid point. Tensions are high. We need resolution, not prolonged investigation. He looked at Peterson and Carver. I appreciate your concerns, but I'm calling for vote. All in favor of immediate discharge with loss of rank. 3 hands rose. Montana, Wyoming, neutral territory. All Thorne allies. Opposed Peterson and Carver. Not enough. Motion carries. Colonel Hawthorne, you are hereby discharged from service effective immediately. Reynolds paused. However, this council recognizes the unusual circumstances. Rather than imprisonment, we're recommending exile. Exile. The word hung like a death sentence. Carver leaned forward. Exile to where? Thorne answered before Reynolds could. The Deadlands. If Colonel Hawthorne can survive 30 days in rogue territory without pack support, he'll be granted safe passage to neutral ground. If he returns to Silver Ridge or affiliated territory before then, he faces summary execution. The Deadlands. 300 square miles of no man's land in eastern Montana, home to rogues exiled for crimes too severe to forgive, but too minor to justify execution. 90% died within a week. The other 10% went feral. Peterson looked horrified. That's not exile, that's slow execution. I move for reconsideration. The motion has passed, Reynolds said, but wouldn't meet Hawk's eyes. General Thorne will administer sentence. This tribunal is adjourned. The gavel struck. Hawk's future shattered. Thorne approached those pale eyes gleaming. Your insignia, Hawthorne. What's left? Hawk had surrendered rank pins last night. Now Thorne wanted his dog tags. Physical markers of identity as a soldier, as pack member, as something more than just a man with nothing. Hawk pulled the chain from around his neck. felt the weight of stamped metal that had survived Boot Camp 3 combat deployments, 8 years of PAC service. His name ranked serial number blood type. Proof he'd existed as something meaningful. He dropped the tags into Thorne's palm. "One more thing," Thorne said, voice low enough only Hawk could hear. "Der Blackwood will remain with the PAC. Any attempt to contact her will be considered aggression and dealt with accordingly." Understood. So Sarah was the target after all. Thorne was separating them, ensuring Hawk couldn't protect her from whatever came next. The exile wasn't just punishment, it was tactical isolation. Hawk's jaw worked. Understood. Good. Sentence will be carried out at dawn tomorrow. You have until then to prepare. I suggest you use the time wisely. Thorne walked away, leaving Hawk standing in a courtroom that had just validated his destruction. Chen and Williams moved forward, and this time Williams's hand rested on his sidearm. The walk back to quarters passed in a blur. Hawk's mind spun through scenarios, escape resistance, some way to fight back. But every scenario ended the same. He was one man against a system Thorne had controlled for decades. No allies with enough power, no evidence that couldn't be explained away, no leverage. Just 36 hours until exile to territory, no one survived. Chen opened the door to Hawk's quarters. "Sir, I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I don't think you did. But General Thorne, he's been running this pack since before I was born. Nobody questions him. Maybe that's the problem." Chen nodded slowly. "Maybe. But pointing that out won't change tomorrow." He closed the door. Lock engaged. Hawk stood alone in quarters that would never be his again. He had nothing left to lose, which meant he had everything to gain. Hawk spent the next hour stripping quarters of anything useful. Personal knife, technically civilian property, lighter, water purification tablets, small first aid kit, paracord, the envelope he'd written, which he sealed into his jacket lining using thread and a sewing kit from basic training. If he died out there, at least someone would know the truth. As evening fell, footsteps came. Multiple sets. The door opened and Danny Cruz entered, flanked by guards but granted supervised access. 5 minutes, the guard said. Danny waited until the door closed, then moved close enough to speak quietly. "This is bullshit. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows, but no one can prove it. Then we make them prove it. I've been going through mission files, satellite feeds. There are gaps, Marcus. Timestamps that don't line up. Someone scrubbed original data and replaced it. Give me 2 weeks. I don't have 2 weeks. I have 12 hours. Danny's fist slammed into the wall hard enough to dent drywall. Then we fight. You, me, anyone loyal. We take what we can carry and disappear. He won't need to hunt all of us. He'll just point the council at you, manufacture evidence, destroy you the same way. And then Sarah's alone with no one to protect her. Sarah can take care of. Can she against Thorne, against whatever he's planning?" Hawk gripped Danny's shoulder. "Brother, I need you here, inside the system, watching. If something happens to Sarah, if Thorne makes a move on anyone else, you're the only one who will see it coming. And you just accept exile to the fucking Deadlands. I survive it, then I come back with evidence they can't ignore." Danny's laugh was bitter. 90% mortality rate. The 10% who survive go feral. How do you plan to beat those odds? By remembering who I am, by holding on to the mission, and by knowing you're here watching my back even when I can't see it. Danny's face twisted, but Marine training kicked in, squared his shoulders, dried his eyes with pure force of will. Semper Fi, always. They embraced briefly, fierce hug that said everything words couldn't. Brothers in arms, brothers in truth. When they separated, Danny pulled something from his pocket. Emergency frequency, personal comm unit, not PAC issued. If you find a way to contact me, use this. I'll be listening. Hawk took the device, barely larger than a thumb drive, military grade, encrypted. Danny, if they find this, then they find it. Some things matter more than regulations. The guard knocked. Danny straightened, military formality sliding back like armor. "Give him hell, Colonel." "You too, Lieutenant." Danny left. Hawk was alone again, with thoughts and preparations. He hid the comm unit inside his boot heel, the cavity small but sufficient. Midnight came with another visitor, unexpected. Sarah. She slipped through during shift change, moved like smoke, having bribed or coerced someone. Her medical bag hung at her side, face set with determination. 5 minutes before they notice, Hawk stood distance between them, feeling both infinite and non-existent. You shouldn't be here. If Thorn finds out, fuck Thorn. Her voice carried fury he'd never heard. He's been lying. About everything. I've been going through my grandmother's journals. Stories she told me about our family, about old ways. Marcus, there's more going on than just court-martial. She pulled a worn leather journal from her bag, flipped to a marked page. My grandmother wrote this 40 years ago, about a young soldier who came seeking information about windborne bloodlines. She thought he wanted to help preserve old knowledge, but he was documenting them, cataloging them, marking them for elimination. The windborne, ancient bloodlines predating modern pack structure, powers from nature itself, not moon goddess blessing. Military hierarchy saw them as threats. Too unpredictable, too powerful, so they systematically hunted them down over decades, convinced regional councils to exile them for made-up crimes. She turned the journal, showed him a sketch. Young man, maybe 30, military uniform, the face familiar even in pencil. General Thorn, 40 years younger but unmistakable. He's been doing this for decades, finding windborne descendants, manufacturing evidence, sending them to die in deadlands or worse. Sarah's hands shook. My grandmother was on his list. She survived only by hiding, pretending to be normal healer. But she kept records, names, dates. 47 people exiled or killed under suspicious circumstances over 20 years. 47, the same number Hawk had found in Thorn's files during his investigation. Your family is windborne. Was. My grandmother died 10 years ago without passing on knowledge. Too afraid Thorn would find out, would target me. So I grew up thinking I was just healer, just normal pack member. Sarah's eyes met his. But last night, when everything went wrong at the compound, something happened. I felt it. The wind, the air itself, it responded to me. She held out her hand, palm up. Air above it shimmered, coalesced into a miniature whirlwind no larger than a marble. It spun for 3 seconds, then dissipated. I don't know what I am, but Thorn does. That's why he targeted you. To isolate me. To make sure when he comes for me, there's no one left to defend me. Hawk's tactical mind raced. Then you leave, tonight. Disappear before he makes his move. And go where he controls regional network. I wouldn't make it 50 miles before someone turned me in. She stepped closer. But if we both go to Deadlands? No, absolutely not. Why not? I'm combat medic. I can keep us alive out there. And if we find other exiles, other windborne, maybe we build something. Maybe we come back strong enough to expose what he's done. Or we die in the first 72 hours. Then we die together. The words hung between them, weighted with implications neither could afford to examine. Hawk wanted to argue to tell her she was being rational. But the tactical part of his brain was already running scenarios. 2 people survived better than 1. A medic with mysterious powers could be the difference between death and adaptation. And if Thorn was truly targeting Sarah, leaving her behind was signing her death warrant. How much time before they notice you're gone? She checked her watch. 2 minutes, maybe less. Then here's what you do. Tomorrow at dawn, when they take me to the border, position yourself on Western Observation Post. Medical emergency, real or faked. When the convoy stops at checkpoint 3, that's your window. There's a drainage culvert runs under fence line. You'll have 30 seconds before guards respond. That's insane. It's also the only chance. After that, we move fast into Deadlands. Find cover before Thorn realizes what happened. By the time he figures it out, we'll be too deep for retrieval teams to risk following. Sarah stared at him, processing audacity and stupidity in equal measure. Then she nodded. Western Observation Post, checkpoint 3, 30 seconds. If you miss the window, I won't. She moved toward the door, stopped, turned back. Her hand found his face, fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Marcus, if this doesn't work, it will. But if it doesn't, I want you to know I never believed your lies. Not for a second. You're the most honorable man I've ever known. Hawk covered her hand with his. Keep that thought. We're going to need it where we're headed. She kissed him, then quick and fierce, before slipping out with the same ghostly efficiency she'd used to enter. Hawk was left alone again, but this time with a plan. Desperate, improvised, carrying about 15% chance of success. But 15% was better than zero. He spent remaining hours checking gear, rehearsing the escape, calculating angles and timing. The drainage culvert was barely large enough for a person partially flooded this time of year, led to a ravine 200 meters outside fence. Not ideal, but it provided concealment and a path into dense forest bordering deadlands. If they could make the tree line, they had a chance. Dawn arrived with finality. Chen knocked at 0500. Time, sir? Hawk gathered minimal supplies, strapped his knife to his belt, they'd left him that much, and walked out into pre-dawn darkness. The compound was mostly silent night shift, preparing to hand off to day shift. A transport vehicle waited. William sat in the driver's seat. Chen gestured Hawk into the back, climbed in beside him. No restraints, no heavy security. They were treating this like a routine transfer, not escape risk. That would change if Sarah showed up. The vehicle rumbled through compound, passed through checkpoint 1 without incident. The border fence loomed, reinforced steel, topped with razor wire. Guard towers every 100 meters. Checkpoint 2 passed. Eastern sky was lightning stars fading. In 15 minutes, full dawn would arrive, and with it, the end of Hawk's window. Then the radio crackled. Command, this is Western Observation. We have medical emergency. Dr. Blackwood requesting immediate assistance with injured guard. William slowed. Command, do you want us to respond? A pause, then Thorne's voice suspicious. Negative. Continue to border checkpoint. I'll send response team to Western Observation. Williams accelerated, Hawk's jaw clenched. Thorne had anticipated this, positioned himself to intercept any coordination attempt, but Sarah was improvising. They reached checkpoint 3, reinforced gate guarded by 2 soldiers. Morrison and Rodriguez, both solid operators. Williams stopped, rolled down window. Transferring prisoner to border zone, authorization from General Thorne. Morrison checked her tablet, frowned. I've got authorization, but there's a flag. Hold position while I verify. She moved away, speaking in her radio. Rodriguez remained at the gate. Chen shifted beside Hawk, uncomfortable, but committed. This was the moment. Morrison would confirm with command, find out about the medical emergency, at Western Observation realize it was Sarah's distraction. Unless... Hawk's hand moved to the door handle. Chen caught the motion. Sir, please don't make me. The explosion cut him off. Not a real explosion. An explosive decompression of air, a localized pressure wave that slammed outward from Western Observation Post with enough force to rattle windows and trigger alarms. Sarah's wind powers unleashed in a controlled burst designed for maximum chaos without harming anyone. Morrison's radio lit up with panicked chatter. Rodriguez turned toward Western Post rifle coming up. Chen looked between Hawk and the developing emergency. Hawk made the choice for him. He kicked open the door, rolled out, sprinted for the drainage culvert 20 meters distant. Behind him, Chen's voice, stop, sir, stop, but not gunfire. Because Chen was a good soldier, and good soldiers didn't shoot unarmed men in the back. Hawk hit the culvert entrance at full speed, momentum carrying him into narrow concrete tunnel. Ice-cold water soaked him instantly. He crawled, swam through 3 meters of claustrophobic darkness, lungs burning. He emerged on the far side just as spotlights swept the area. Gunfire erupted, warning shots high and wide. But Hawk was already moving, sprinting for the tree line, every muscle memory from 15 years driving him forward. Someone shouted his name. But the voice faded as Hawk hit forest and kept running branches, whipping his face on even ground, threatening to trip him. Behind him, alarms wailed. Search teams would deploy within minutes. But minutes were all he needed to reach the coordinates in Old Ranger Station, 3 clicks into forest, abandoned, but still standing. If Sarah made it out, that's where she'd head. Hawk ran until his lungs screamed, until his legs turned to rubber, until compound alarms faded to distant echoes. Then he collapsed against a tree, gasping, checking his gear. Knife still attached, supplies secured, comm unit still hidden in boot heel. He waited. 5 minutes. 10. 15. Then a sound, human movement, someone trying to be quiet but not quite quiet enough. Hawk's hand went to his knife body, tensing. Sarah emerged from undergrowth medical bag, clutched tight, face scratched from branches, uniform torn, but alive, functioning, smiling with manic energy. I can't believe that worked. Hawk stood stood checking her for injury. Are you hurt? Bruised ribs coming through a window, but I'm operational. She looked back the way she'd come. They'll have tracking teams out within the hour. We need to move. Agreed, there's a ranger station. I know, I checked maps before I came to see you last night. We shelter there, rest 2 hours, then push deeper before they widen search perimeter. She'd thought this through. Together they moved through forest with tactical efficiency, Sarah matching his pace despite her injuries, both hyper-aware of sounds indicating pursuit. They reached the ranger station as full dawn broke. The building was barely standing, roof partially collapsed, windows, broken nature reclaiming what humans abandoned. But it provided cover from aerial surveillance and a defendable position if needed. Inside, Sarah immediately started cataloging supplies. I've got medical gear for 2 weeks if we're careful, 3 if we ration, food for 4 days, water purification for as long as we can find sources. No weapons except your knife. It'll have to be enough. Hawk moved to the window, scanning forest. No signs of pursuit yet, but they wouldn't have long. Sarah joined him. So what now? We survive 30 days, then what? Come back and hope they invade us. We survive 30 days and gather evidence. Find other exiles. Document Thorne's targets. Build a case even the regional council can't ignore. That's optimistic. That's all we've got. She leaned against the wall, exhaustion finally catching up. Marcus, I need to tell you something. What I did at observation post that wasn't normal. The wind, the pressure wave. I could feel it building inside me like a storm waiting to break. And when I released it, it was terrifying, but also freeing, like I'd been caged my whole life and finally broke out. Hawk studied her face, seeing not just the woman he'd planned to marry, but something older, wilder, more dangerous. Can you control it? I don't know. I've only used it twice last night and at the compound, both in crisis. I don't know how to activate it deliberately, channel it safely, make sure I don't. She trailed off. Don't what? Don't hurt people. I don't mean to hurt. The pressure wave this morning, I aimed it at empty ground, but if someone had been standing there, it would have killed them. Crushed lungs, ruptured organs. These powers aren't defensive, Marcus. They're weapons. And I have no idea how to wield them responsibly. This was the cost of Windborn heritage. Power without training. Abilities that could save or destroy with ease. Then we learn together. You figure out your limits. I provide tactical oversight. We turn it from liability into asset. You say that like we're starting a training program. We are. We have 30 days to become something Thorne doesn't expect. 30 days to go from exiles to insurgents. Sarah's smile was sharp. Insurgents. I like the sound of that. They rested for 2 hours, sleeping in shifts. When they woke, the sun was high and forest sounds had normalized, birds calling, squirrels chattering. Hawk checked his compass, oriented them northwest. Deadlands proper are another 50 clicks that direction. We'll hit border by nightfall if we push hard. After that, we're in rogue territory. Rules change. How so? No pack law, no authority structures, just survival of fittest and tribal alliances that shift with the wind. If we encounter rogues, we need to establish ourselves as threats too dangerous to attack, but not threatening enough to require elimination. And how do we do that? Carefully. They moved out, pushing deeper into territory that grew wilder with each kilometer. The forest here was old-growth trees thick enough 3 men couldn't encircle. Canopies so dense that ground level existed in perpetual twilight. By late afternoon, they found their first sign they weren't alone, a campsite recently abandoned. Fire pits still warm, supplies scattered, suggesting hasty departure. Someone had been here within the past hour. Someone who'd heard them coming and decided discretion was preferable. Sarah knelt by the fire pit, examining tracks. 4 individuals, mixed ages based on boot sizes, heading north, moving fast. Rogues. Probably. Question is whether they're running from us or from something else. Hawk scanned surrounding forest. The answer came 30 seconds later in the form of voices, harsh, commanding, definitely not rogue. Search Team 3, sweep northwestern quadrant. If you find tracks, mark and report. Do not engage without backup. Thorne's soldiers, already this deep, which meant they deployed larger resources than Hawk anticipated. This wasn't token pursuit. This was manhunt. Sarah's eyes met his silent communication. They had maybe 2 minutes before sweep team reached this position. Hide and hope they're not found or run and risk being tracked. Hawk chose option 3. He grabbed Sarah's hand, pulled her deeper into forest at 45-degree angle from search team's trajectory. Not directly away that would leave obvious tracks, but oblique enough they'd be outside primary search cone. They moved with exaggerated care, avoiding branches that might snap, stepping on stones and roots that wouldn't hold prints. Behind them, voices grew closer. Got something. Fresh fire pit. Less than an hour old. Any signs of hawthorn or blackwood? Can't tell. Too many tracks. Mark it. We'll send forensics. The voices faded as Hawk and Sarah put distance between themselves and the search team. They moved for another hour until exhaustion and adrenaline crash forced them to stop at a natural hollow beneath an overturned tree. Sarah collapsed against makeshift shelter. They're not giving up. No, they can't. If we make it to Deadlands and start talking to other exiles, Thorne's whole operation falls apart. So what's the play? Hawk pulled out the comm unit Danny had given him, turned it on for the first time. The tiny screen glowed green, active, but no messages. Danny was maintaining radio silence, waiting for Hawk to make contact. He keyed in a simple code, Alpha Romeo Mike, a live running making progress, then shut it down before anyone could triangulate. We keep moving, keep surviving, and we find someone who's been in Deadlands longer than us. Someone who knows the territory of players. You mean Captain Vale? Ghost. Hawk nodded. 5 years ago, James Vale had been court-martialed for the same crime Hawk now faced. He'd been sentenced to death, escaped, vanished into Deadland. Rumors said he'd built an army of exiles. Other rumors said he'd gone feral. But if those rumors were wrong, if Ghost had stayed sane and organized, he might be their only chance. How do we find him? We don't. We let him find us. Sarah stared at him. That's a terrible plan. You have a better one? She didn't. So they waited in their hollow as darkness fell, as forest sounds shifted from day creatures to night hunters, as temperature dropped and breath became visible in moonlight. And somewhere in that darkness, something was watching them. Hawk felt it first, weight of observation, predatory and patient. He signaled Sarah to stillness, hand on his knife, every sense extended. Not search teams. They moved with tactical discipline, lights and radios and coordination. This was something else. Something that belonged to wilderness. The bushes rustled, not wind, deliberate movement circling their position. Sarah's hand found his arm, her whisper barely audible. Rogues, probably. How many? At least 4, maybe 6. They emerged from darkness with the coordinated precision of a pack hunter. 5 of them, all in human form, but barely. Their eyes reflected moonlight with amber glow that spoke of wolves too close to surface. Clothing torn and filthy. Weapons improvised, but lethal clubs, knives when carrying what looked like a fire axe. The largest stepped forward and Hawk revised his assessment. Not feral, not completely. This one had intelligence behind the predatory gleam. You're not Thorne's soldiers, but you smell like pack. Hawk stayed seated, deliberately non-threatening. We were. Now we're nothing. Exiles. As of this morning. The big rogue tilted his head, studying them with focus. Hawk associated with tacticians, not savages. Silver Ridge. Yes. And Thorne sent you here. Thorne wanted me dead. Deadlands were supposed to finish what his court-martial started. Something shifted in the rogue's expression, not sympathy, but recognition. You were set up. Thoroughly. What did he accuse you of? Killing a civilian alpha during what was supposed to be recon operation. The rogue barked a laugh, sharp and bitter. Sounds familiar. He got me on same charge 5 years ago. Said I massacred refugees. Truth was, I was following his orders to eliminate windborne targets. Sarah inhaled sharply. Hawk's hand tightened on his knife, but he kept his voice level. Captain James Vale. Haven't used that rank in a long time, but yeah. Ghost, if you prefer. He gestured to the others. These are my people. We survive out here by being smarter and meaner than anything else in forest. Question is, are you worth keeping alive, or are you just more mouths to feed? Sarah spoke before Hawk could. I'm combat medic, 15 years experience including field surgery, and I'm windborne. That got their attention. All 5 rogues focused on Sarah with sudden intensity. Ghost crouched down, getting closer, studying her face in moonlight. Windborn, you sure? I'm sure, barely learning to control it, but yes. Prove it. Sarah held out her hand. Air above it shimmered, coalesced into that same miniature whirlwind Hawk had seen in his quarters. It spun for 5 seconds strong enough to rustle leaves 3 feet away, then dissipated when Sarah closed her fist. Ghost rocked back on his heels, something like awe crossing his scarred face. Well, fuck me, a real Windborn. I thought Thorn had killed all of you. He tried, what he missed. Ghost looked at Hawk. And you? What do you bring besides famous name and target on your back? Tactical training, combat experience, 3 deployments, 8 years leading Silver Ridge units. I know how Thorn thinks how he operates, and I want to burn his operation to the ground. Revenge. Justice. There's a difference. Ghost studied him for a long moment, then stood extended his hand. Welcome to Deadlands, Colonel, or I guess just Marcus now. You've got 2 options. Die out here alone, or join my camp. We've got 50 fighters, most of them exiles like you. People Thorn threw away because they asked too many questions or had wrong kind of powers. Hawk took his hand, pulled himself to his feet. What's the catch? Ghost's smile was all teeth. The catch is we're planning something, and something big. And if you're in, you're all in. No half measures, no backing out when shit gets real. What kind of something? Ghost's smile widened. The kind that ends with Thorn's head on a spike. Metaphorically speaking. Mostly. Hawk looked at Sarah, saw his own determination reflected in her eyes. They'd come this far. Might as well see it through. We're in. Then follow me as I'm camp's 3 clicks northeast. We'll get you fed, briefed, and trained. Because in a few weeks, we're going back to Silver Ridge. And we're going to show every pack on this continent exactly what their precious general has been doing in shadows. Ghost turned and melted back into forest, his people following with practiced efficiency. Hawk and Sarah exchanged one last look, acknowledgement they just committed to something far bigger and more dangerous than simple survival. Then they followed Ghost into darkness, toward whatever came next. The forest swallowed them whole, and behind them, the last lights of civilization faded. Ahead lay only wilderness rogues, and the uncertain promise of revenge transformed into justice. Hawk's exile had lasted less than 12 hours. The real war was just beginning. Ghost's camp sprawled across a natural depression 3 kilometers deeper into Deadlands, hidden beneath triple canopy forests thick enough to defeat satellite surveillance. Hawk counted 47 souls, not organized military formation, but not feral chaos either. Something in between. Survival carved into human form. Tents constructed from salvaged military gear clustered around a central fire pit. Women mending clothing, men cleaning weapons, children, actual children, playing with sticks carved into crude swords. A community. Thorn had exiled entire families. Ghost led them past sentries who tracked their movement with veteran awareness toward the largest structure, a command tent cobbled together from 3 separate shelters. Inside, maps covered makeshift tables. Satellite photos, hand-drawn schematics, tactical overlays that spoke of intelligence gathering far more sophisticated than rogues should possess. A young soldier stood guard over a figure bound to a chair, face bloodied but defiant. Ghost gestured toward the prisoner. Private Ryan Garrett. Caught him 2 days ago during supply raid. He's been very cooperative once he realized we weren't going to eat him. Garrett's eyes widened, seeing Hawk. Colonel Hawthorne, sir, they said you were dead. For something I didn't do, same as you were sent to die for following orders. Ghost pulled a chair close to the prisoner, straddled it backward. Ryan here has been telling us interesting stories about General Thorne's special projects, about enhanced soldiers and chemical treatments, about a program called Silverback. Ghost's scarred face twisted. Sound familiar? Hawk's blood went cold, remembering Elena's inhuman speed, her savage strength. How long has this been operational? Garrett swallowed hard. 15 years, maybe longer. I only learned about it 6 months ago when they transferred me to security detail in sub-level labs. Sir, what I saw there, it wasn't right. Wolves strapped to tables injected with compounds that made them stronger, but also wrong, unstable. Most didn't survive. The ones that did. Sarah moved closer, medic instincts overriding caution. What happened to survivors? They became his enforcers, 12 of them total, including Staff Sergeant Rivers. Enhanced strength, speed, aggression. But the trade-off was their humanity. The drugs rewire brains, make them loyal only to whoever controls their supply. Thorn keeps them dependent, keeps them obedient. Ghost stood, paced the confines of the tent. 12 enhanced soldiers. That's a small army, if they're as dangerous as Elena proved. Garrett nodded miserably. There's more. Before they caught me, I copied files from Thorn's personal server. Had them on encrypted drive, but it got damaged during my escape. Managed to recover one thing, a video file. You need to see it. He gestured toward his confiscated gear. Ghost retrieved a battered tablet, powered it on, navigated to the file. The screen flickered, then resolved into grainy footage of someone Hawk recognized immediately. Danny Cruz. Bruised, bloodied, facing camera with defiant fury. The timestamp showed 36 hours ago, shortly before Hawk's court-martial. Danny's voice came through the speakers, slightly distorted but clear. Hawk, if you're watching this, I'm in deep shit. They're planning to execute me at dawn for conspiracy with an exiled traitor. Funny thing is, I'd do it again. Semper Fi means something even if Thorn forgot. He paused, wiped blood from his mouth with shackled hands. Listen close. I found something in Thorn's files before they arrested me. Project Silverback, he's been creating enhanced soldiers for 15 years, but that's just the beginning. There's another project, Protocol Omega. He's planning something at Regional Alpha Summit next month, something big enough to require all 12 enhanced soldiers on site. Danny leaned closer to camera intensity, burning through bruises. I couldn't decrypt all files, but I got enough. He's targeting alphas themselves. All of them. Assassination disguised as windborne terrorist attack. He'll blame it on Sarah's people, use chaos to install himself as Supreme Commander. One pack, one leader, permanent military rule. A door opened off camera, voices shouting orders. Danny had seconds left. They're going to stage my execution for the tribunal, make it look real. Private Garrett's helping me escape during prison transfer. If this works, I'll be in the wind. If it doesn't, well, at least you'll know what's coming. His eyes locked onto camera. Stop him. For the Corps, for everyone he's destroyed, Semper Fi, brother. The video cut to black. Sounds of a scuffle, then silence, no gunshot, Hawk realized. The execution had been theater. Hawk's hands clenched. Sarah's face had gone white. Ghost stared at the blank screen. Garrett's voice came soft. He recorded that 2 hours before the staged execution. They thought it was a final confession, but really he was leaving intelligence. I helped him escape like he said. Last I heard, he went deep underground. Thorn thinks he's dead. Hawk forced his voice to work past rage and relief. When's the summit? 3 weeks, Cascade Lodge in Oregon. 50+ regional alphas plus security details. Thorn controls venue security, so he'll have complete access. If he activates Protocol Omega there, it's the end of pack democracy. One tyrant ruling all territories. Ghost kicked the chair he'd been sitting on, sent it crashing into the tent wall. Then we stop him. We go in, expose his operation, let alphas see what he really is. Sarah shook her head. With what evidence? A recovered video and testimony from exiled rogues. They'll never believe us. Then we get evidence they can't ignore. Hawk turned to Garrett. You said you were on security detail at labs. You know layout. Every inch. I can draw maps, entry points, guard rotations. But Sir, infiltrating Silver Ridge is suicide. Security's tripled since your escape. Thorn's paranoid. Paranoid means distracted. We go in quiet, steal his research data, get out before they realize we were there. Ghost's scarred face split into a predatory grin. Now you're talking my language. When do we move? Soon as we're ready, but first, Hawk looked at Sarah. You mentioned it activating other Windborn. How many can you find? Sarah pulled the worn journal from her medical bag. My grandmother tracked 37 descendants across 5 territories. Most don't know what they are. I'd need time to contact them, convince them, teach basics. How much time? A week, maybe 10 days. Hawk did the math. 3 weeks until summit. 1 week for Windborn recruitment. That left 2 weeks to plan and execute the heist, decrypt whatever they stole, and somehow get evidence to people who believe it. Tight. But Marines had pulled off worse with less. Do it. Ghost, I need your best people for infiltration team. 6 operators plus Sarah and me. You'll have them. Ghost gestured toward the tent entrance. We've got supplies, weapons, everything we've liberated from Thorne's convoys. Welcome to the revolution, Colonel. Just Hawk, ranks don't mean much out here. Fair enough, but that tactical brain, that still counts for everything. Over the next week, Garrett earned trust through consistent accuracy. His intel on patrol patterns proved correct. His volunteered participation in dangerous reconnaissance never wavered. And when Ghost tested him with false information that never reached Thorne, it confirmed his genuine commitment. Whatever he'd been, he was one of them now. Sarah left at dawn to begin her mission, accompanied by 2 of Ghost's people. She kissed Hawk once before departing, fierce and desperate. Then she was gone, and Hawk threw himself into training. Ghost Camp wasn't military, it was rougher, more improvised. But the people had survived the unsurvivable, been thrown away and refused to die. That bred particular ferocity. Hawk organized them into 3 squads, Alpha for combat veterans, Bravo for recent exiles, Charlie for support and logistics. He ran drills that made drill instructors weep. Close quarters, combat, urban infiltration, silent movement. Slowly, rogues transformed into soldiers. By the 4th day, Sarah returned with 17 windborne descendants, ages from 25 to 60, professions from doctors to mechanics to teachers. None warriors, all desperate for answers. Hawk watched from across camp as Sarah worked with them, teaching control and precision. She'd grown into her abilities with startling speed. Wind responded to her like a loyal hound. Rodriguez, one of Ghost's lieutenants with tactical experience rivaling Hawk's own, appeared at his elbow. Your girl's impressive. She's not my girl, not anymore. Thorne dissolved the engagement. Doesn't mean she stopped caring. Hawk didn't respond. Rodriguez was right, but acknowledging it meant acknowledging the impossibility of any future beyond survival. How's integration going? Rodriguez shrugged. Rogues are suspicious of Windborne, think they're unnatural. Windborne are terrified of rogues, think we're 3 seconds from going feral. Your job is making them trust each other. Any suggestions? Pair them up, force cooperation through necessity. Nothing builds trust like depending on someone to keep you alive. Hawk implemented the strategy that afternoon. Each Windborne paired with rogue protection, details requiring constant coordination. Initially, both groups resisted, but hunger and shared danger eroded prejudice. By the 2nd day, partnerships were forming. By the 3rd, something approaching friendship. On the 7th night, Hawk gathered everyone around the central fire pit. 83 souls, rogues, Windborne exiles of every variation. Most of you know who I am. Colonel Marcus Hawthorne, dishonored and exiled for crimes I didn't commit. His voice carried across the silent assembly. Some of you were here when Captain Vale earned same treatment. Others arrived more recently, accused of things that maybe you did or maybe were convenient lies. Heads nodded. Everyone here had a story. General Thorne has been doing this for decades. 47 names I've confirmed, probably more we haven't found. He targets anyone who threatens his control, Windborne, for their unpredictable power, soldiers for asking inconvenient questions, civilians for witnessing things they shouldn't. He paused. Let that sink in. In 2 weeks, 50 regional alphas are gathering for summit. Thorne's planning to assassinate them and blame it on you. He gestured to the Windborne. Frame it as terrorist attack, use chaos to install himself as supreme commander. One path, one ruler forever. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. We're going to stop him. We're going to infiltrate Silver Ridge, steal his evidence, and expose everything. Then we're going to the summit ourselves. We're going to save those alphas, whether they deserve it or not. Because if we don't, democracy dies and tyranny wins. Ghost stood moved beside Hawk. This is suicide, just so we're clear. Silver Ridge has 300 soldiers, enhanced guard security protocols designed by the man standing next to me. Our chances are maybe 20%. Someone called out, so why do it? Hawk met the speaker's eyes, a young wolf whose father had been exiled for speaking against Thorne. Because some things matter more than survival. Because honor means standing when everyone else kneels. Because I'm tired of watching good people destroyed by a system that protects monsters. He let silence stretch, then spoke the words that had defined his career. For the fallen, for the forgotten, for the future. The crowd responded with voices that started hesitant, but grew until they thundered. For the fallen, for the forgotten, for the future. The war cry of exiles who'd found something worth dying for. 10 days after Sarah's departure, the infiltration team was ready. Hawk chose his 6 operators with surgical precision. Ghost Rodriguez Garrett for his knowledge, and 3 others whose skills complemented the mission. Sarah returned the night before departure, exhausted but triumphant. She'd awakened 22 windborne total. They reviewed the plan one final time. Garrett's maps spread across the table, entry points marked, guard rotations memorized. Access through maintenance tunnels, here and here. Rodriguez tapped 2 locations. Avoid main compound, go straight to sublevel via service elevator. Garrett's security codes get us through first 3 checkpoints. What about the 4th, Sarah asked. Requires biometric scan, retinal and fingerprint. Only senior officers have clearance. Everyone looked at Hawk. I was stripped of rank. My biometrics were purged. Actually, Garrett's voice carried uncertainty. Sir, standard protocol is to archive biometric data rather than delete. Prevents identity fraud. Your codes might still work if system hasn't been updated. Might. The entire operation balanced on a single word. Ghost leaned back. If it doesn't work, we're trapped in high-security facility with limited escape routes and 300 hostiles between us and freedom. Then we don't get trapped. Hawk traced alternate routes. Rodriguez and I go through biometric checkpoint. Rest of you hold the service elevator as fallback. If we're not back in 30 minutes, extract without us. Sarah's hand found his arm. Not acceptable. It's the only way. If whole team gets caught, Thorn wins. At least this way some of us survive to continue the mission. Her jaw set with an expression Hawk recognized she'd argue later, but understood tactical necessity now. They departed at midnight, moving through forest with coordinated silence. 2 hours brought them to Silver Ridge's perimeter. The maintenance access lay beneath a drainage culvert, the same one Hawk had used to escape. Poetic symmetry. Inside the tunnels, emergency lighting provided just enough illumination. They moved past junction points, descended through access shafts, emerged at the service elevator, exactly where Garrett's maps indicated. Rodriguez produced a key card liberated from a supply convoy, swiped it. The mechanism engaged. Doors slid open. Hawk, Rodriguez, Sarah, and Garrett squeezed inside. Ghost and the others remained at the shaft, weapons ready. The elevator descended 3 levels, stopped with mechanical shutter. Doors opened onto a corridor that belonged in a military medical facility. White walls, fluorescent lighting, antiseptic smell, hiding something dark. Security checkpoint 4 stood 30 meters distant. 2 guards, both alert. Behind them, a door marked with biohazard symbols and clearance warnings. Garrett had been right, the guards weren't enhanced. Regular soldiers, competent, but not superhuman. That meant they could be avoided rather than killed. Sarah raised her hand slightly. Air in the corridor shifted, not violently, but enough to extinguish overhead lights in a cascade of blown bulbs. Emergency lighting kicked in red and dim. The guards reacted professionally, weapons up, scanning one, keying in his radio to report the malfunction. But in the seconds they were distracted, Hawk and Rodriguez closed the distance with tactical precision. 2 impacts perfectly placed. The guards dropped unconscious before they could raise the alarm. Hawk heard that one before he hit the floor, lowered him silently. Rodriguez did the same. They had maybe 5 minutes before someone noticed the guards weren't responding. Hawk approached the biometric scanner, placed his eye against the retinal reader, his hand on the fingerprint plate. For 3 seconds, nothing. Then soft beeps, mechanical whir, and the door lock disengaged with pneumatic hiss. The system hadn't been updated. Thorn's arrogance assumed Hawk was either dead or too far back. Fatal mistake. They entered the laboratory and immediately understood why Garrett looked haunted, describing it. Examination tables lined walls, each with restraints designed to hold someone much stronger than human. Vials of glowing compounds in refrigerated units labeled with alphanumeric codes. Computer terminals running constant analysis screens showing molecular structures that Sarah's medical knowledge immediately recognized as monstrous. This is obscene. Sarah moved between workstations. They're not enhancing wolves, they're rewriting them at genetic level. Forced evolution through chemical trauma. Rodriguez was already at the main terminal, bypassing security. Downloading everything. Medical logs, subject records, chemical formulas, financial transactions. This is going to take at least 10 minutes. 10 minutes they didn't have. Hawk moved to a filing cabinet, started pulling physical records. Patient files for 47 individuals, the same number from Thorne's assassination list. Each documented treatment protocols, survival rates, psychological evaluations. Most files ended with a single stamp, terminated. The ones that didn't bore names, Hawk recognized. Elena Rivers, Marcus Chen, Sarah Morrison. All soldiers he'd served with, trusted, believed, were honorable. All transformed into weapons through Thorne's chemical alchemy. Garrett stood watching the door, monitoring the corridor through security camera feed. "We've got movement. Guard patrol incoming 60 seconds out." Rodriguez cursed, fingers flying. "I need 3 more minutes, maybe 4. "You don't have it. Grab what you can and let's move." "Not enough. We need encryption keys for financial records, communication logs." The door behind them slammed open. Not the door they'd entered. A secondary access Hawk hadn't known existed. Elena Rivers stood in the opening, dressed in tactical gear, her enhanced metabolism already healing the burns from their last encounter. Her eyes glowed with chemical amber. "Hello, Marcus. I was hoping you'd try something this stupid." She moved with inhuman speed, crossed the lab in 3 strides, her hand closing around Rodriguez's throat before the lieutenant could raise her weapon. One squeeze, and Rodriguez's windpipe would collapse. "Everyone freeze, hands visible, or I crush her larynx and she drowns in her own blood." Hawk's hand moved toward his knife, then stopped. Elena would follow through. Enhanced soldiers didn't bluff. Sarah's voice came calm. "Elena, you don't have to do this. The drugs Thorne gave you, they're controlling you, making you something you're not." Elena's laugh was sharp and raw. "You think I'm being controlled? I volunteered for this. Begged for it. You know what it's like being ordinary in a pack that values strength. Watching people like Marcus get promoted while you stay invisible. So you became his weapon. I became powerful, became essential, became the thing that makes sure weaklings like you don't destroy what we've built." Rodriguez was turning blue. Hawk made a decision. "Let her go. You want me, I'm here. She's not part of this." "Everyone's part of this." Elena's free hand gestured at the lab. "This is the future. Enhanced soldiers who don't question, don't doubt, don't betray. The perfect pack." Sarah's hands moved subtly, air currents shifting. Not enough to be obvious, but Hawk felt it, pressure building like a storm. "You're not perfect. You're addicted. Thorne keeps you dependent, so you'll do anything for your next dose." "I'm loyal. There's a difference." Elena's grip tightened. Rodriguez's struggles weakened. Then Sarah unleashed the wind. It came as a focused blast, surgical, rather than explosive, targeting Elena with enough force to throw her backward without catching Rodriguez in the effect. Elena flew across the lab, slammed into a refrigeration unit, hard enough to crack reinforced glass. But she was already moving enhanced reflexes, compensating, coming to her feet with murder in those amber eyes. Bad choice. The fight that followed belonged in nightmares. Elena's chemical strength against Sarah's windborne powers. Rodriguez recovering enough to provide covering fire, Garrett and Hawk trying to flank while downloading data continued at the terminal. Elena moved like liquid violence, every strike precise and devastating. Sarah countered with wind barriers that deflected attacks, redirected momentum, turned Elena's strength into liability. They crashed through examination tables, shattered vials of glowing compounds. Rodriguez's bullets found their mark, 3 hits center mass that would have killed any normal wolf. Elena stumbled, blood spreading across her tactical vest, then kept coming as enhanced metabolism worked to seal wounds that should have been fatal. Hawk got behind her, knife in hand, aimed for the spine junction. But Elena anticipated, twisted, caught his wrist with crushing force. Bones ground together. The knife clattered to the floor. She threw him into a wall hard enough that his vision doubled. Through the haze, he saw Sarah preparing another wind blast, saw Rodriguez reloading, saw Garrett pulling the data drive from the terminal with shaking hands. Elena saw it too. "Oh, no, you don't." She went for Garrett, moving too fast to stop. But Sarah was faster, creating a wind barrier between them that Elena crashed into like hitting a brick wall. The impact didn't stop her, but it slowed her enough for Rodriguez to get close, for the lieutenant to grab one of the experimental vials from a broken refrigeration unit. Rodriguez smashed the vial across Elena's face. The compound inside, something marked with biohazard warnings, an experimental label. reacted violently with Elena's enhanced chemistry. Smoke hissed from the contact point. Elena screamed a sound combining rage and agony. She fell convulsing her body trying to metabolize a chemical designed to enhance wolves who hadn't already been enhanced. The overdose effect was catastrophic. Her enhanced metabolism fought to process the toxin, but the compound was designed for controlled doses over months, not an instant flood. Foam flecked her lips. Her eyes rolled back. Rodriguez didn't wait to see if she'd recover. She grabbed the data drive from Garrett, pulled Hawk to his feet. Move, whole base is going to converge on this position. They ran for the elevator, Sarah bringing up the rear, maintaining a wind barrier behind them that would slow pursuit. Alarms shrieked. Emergency lockdowns activated. But they'd planned for this, and Ghost people had prepared. Shape charges detonated at 3 junction points, not large enough to cause casualties, but sufficient to trigger fighter suppression systems and create chaos. In the confusion, they reached the elevator, ascended to ground level, found Ghost waiting with weapons ready. Go, go, go. They sprinted through maintenance tunnels, emerged into the forest, just as response teams deployed from the main compound. Searchlights swept darkness. Dogs barked. Radios crackled with coordinated pursuit. But Hawk and his team knew these woods, knew the paths that didn't appear on maps, the streams that confused scent trails, the natural deadfalls that provided cover. They ran until dawn broke, until their lungs burned and legs turned to rubber. When they finally stopped 10 kilometers deep into Deadlands, Rodriguez held up the data drive like a trophy. We got it. Everything. Medical records, financial transactions, communication logs, enough to bury Thorne and everyone who helped him. Hawk took the drive, felt the weight of evidence that had cost them so much. Behind them, Sarah leaned against a tree face, pale with exhaustion, using her powers that extensively had drained her to collapse. Ghost was checking casualties. 3 of his people had taken hits during extraction, nothing fatal but enough to require medical attention. And somewhere behind them, Elena was either dead or recovering. The experimental compound's interaction with her enhanced physiology remained unknown, but her enhanced healing capabilities meant she might survive what would kill a normal wolf. Either way, Thorne now knew they had the evidence, would know they were coming. The tactical situation had transformed from covert operation to open warfare. Garrett looked at the drive in Hawk's hand. What now? Now we decrypt this, find out exactly what Thorne's planning, and figure out how to stop 50 alphas from walking into an assassination. How long until the summit? Rodriguez checked her tactical watch. 13 days, but Thorne's paranoid. If he thinks we're coming, he might move the timeline up. Sarah pushed off from the tree, exhaustion making her movements slow, but determination keeping her upright. Then we move faster, get back to camp, analyze the data plan, the counter-operation. She looked at Hawk with eyes that had seen too much horror. And we pray 13 days is enough. They trudged back toward Ghost Camp carrying evidence that would either save Pack democracy or get them all killed trying. Behind them, Silver Ridge mobilized for war. Ahead, the summit approached with inexorable momentum. Hawk's hand tightened on the data drive. Danny had risked everything to give them this chance. They wouldn't waste it. The real battle was just beginning. The data drive contained damnation in digital form. Rodriguez worked through the night, bypassing encryption, while Hawk paced the command tent. Sarah treated wounded, her windborne healing, accelerating recovery in ways that made even Ghost veterans stare. Outside the camp, prepared for war with quiet efficiency. By dawn, Rodriguez had cracked 70% of the files. What emerged painted Thorne not as a rogue general, but as an architect of genocide stretched across decades. Financial records showed payments to 47 assassins disguised as training expenditures. Communication logs revealed coordination with corrupt regional alphas. Medical files documented Project Silverback's true scope, 214 test subjects over 15 years, with a survival rate of 6%. And Protocol Omega's blueprint laid bare Thorne's endgame with clinical precision. Ghost read the tactical plan aloud, his scarred face growing harder. Summit Day. Thorne positions his 12 enhanced soldiers at all exits disguised as security. Regional alphas gather in main hall for opening ceremonies. At precisely 1000 hours, enhanced soldiers seal exits and deploy nerve agent through ventilation system. Sarah looked up from bandaging. Nerve agent that would kill everyone in minutes. coordination of regional leadership. Then Thorne broadcasts footage showing windborne terrorists launching the attack. He rides in as savior, consolidates Power Institute's martial law. Rodriguez pulled up another file, a list of names marked for survival. Every corrupt alpha who'd helped Thorne plus key military commanders. 23 individuals who'd walk out while 50 innocents died. Hawk studied the list, committing each name to memory. We're leaking this, all of it, every file, every name. Broadcast it to every pack before summit begins. Ghost shook his head. Won't work. Thorne controls communication infrastructure. He'll jam any transmission to claim it's disinformation. We need physical proof delivered in person to people who can't be silenced. The alphas themselves. Exactly. We show up at summit, present evidence while they're all in one place. Thorne can't kill what he can't hide. Sarah finished bandaging, moved to study tactical maps. Cascade Lodge. I've been there. The main hall holds maybe 200 people. 50 alphas plus security details. Puts us at 300 minimum. Add Thorne's enhanced soldiers and loyal troops. We're looking at 500 hostiles. Against our 83 fighters, half non-combat trained. Rodriguez tapped the map. Windborne are force multipliers if used correctly. We don't need to win a straight fight. We need to hold long enough for alphas to see truth. Once they understand, they'll turn on Thorne. And if they don't, then we die exposing him. Either way, truth gets out. Hawk appreciated the brutal mathematics. This wasn't about survival. It was about ensuring Thorne's operation died even if they did. We need an inside man, someone already at summit who can help us penetrate security. Who everyone there is either Thorne's ally or too terrified to act. Hawk pulled out the comm unit Danny had given him. Time for a second transmission. He keyed in a coded message, Bravo Echo Tango Alpha. Need extraction. Followed by coordinates for a rendezvous point 50 kilometers from the summit location. The response came 30 seconds later. Single word confirmed. Ghost raised an eyebrow. Who's your inside man? Someone who's been waiting for this chance since the day they exiled me. The journey to rendezvous took 2 days through terrain that tested even Ghost veterans. They moved in 3 columns, fighters at point, in rear guard windborne, in protected positions, wounded on improvised litters. They transformed from refugees into a coordinated fighting force. Not professional military, but something more desperate and therefore more dangerous. On the second night they reached the rendezvous, a state park officially closed for season, actually serving as neutral ground. Hawk waited at designated coordinates while Ghost positioned security in a perimeter. The contact arrived at midnight. Single vehicle, civilian plates, driving with cautious awareness. The engine cut. The door opened. Lieutenant Danny Cruz stepped out dressed in civilian clothes but moving with military precision. His face was harder than Hawk remembered, new scars marking his jaw, but his eyes held the same fierce loyalty. Hawk stepped from shadows. You're supposed to be dead. Danny's grin was pure relief. You're supposed to be exiled. Guess we're both bad at following orders. They embraced with the intensity of soldiers who'd seen each other die in dreams too many times. When they separated, Danny's expression turned grim. I got your message. Took some doing to break away from Summit security detail. But Thorne's distracted. He knows you're coming. How much does he know? Everything. Elena survived your encounter. Told him about the data drive, your infiltration capabilities. He's moved the timeline of summits in 4 days instead of 2 weeks. Trying to execute Protocol Omega before you can interfere. 4 days. Barely enough time to travel to summit location, let alone plan a counter-operation. Sarah appeared beside Hawk, recognition flashing. How was that possible? We saw the video. Was staged like I said. Thorne wanted Hawk to think I was dead, that there was no one left inside to help. But I've been working with sympathetic officers, building evidence, waiting for the right moment. Danny pulled a tablet from his vehicle. I've got access to Summit's security grid. Guard positions, camera feeds, ventilation controls. Everything you need to counter Thorne's plan. Ghost emerged from shadows, hand on his sidearm, until Hawk waved him down. This is Lieutenant Cruz. He's with us. The dead man. You collect ghosts as a hobby, Colonel. Only the useful ones. They spent 3 hours reviewing Danny's intel, correlating it with Rodriguez's decrypted files. The picture that emerged was both worse and better. Worse because Thorn had tripled security-positioned enhanced soldiers at every strategic point, installed backup systems for Protocol Omega. Better because Danny had access codes that would let them bypass initial security. The tactical plan crystallized. They'd split into 4 teams. Alpha would secure the Alphas and present evidence. Bravo would neutralize enhanced soldiers using coordinated windborne powers. Charlie would control ventilation and prevent nerve agent deployment. Delta would handle Thorn directly. Hawk would lead Delta. Danny volunteered for Charlie team using his security access to infiltrate ventilation controls. Ghost took Bravo. Sarah led Windborne in support across all teams. Rodriguez studied the plan with professional skepticism. This requires perfect timing and zero margin for error. If any team fails, the whole operation collapses. Then we don't fail. You say that like it's a choice. It is. Failure means accepting Thorn's vision. I'd rather die fighting than live in that world. Danny nodded agreement. Semper Fi. We finish this together or we don't finish at all. They departed before dawn, Danny returning to Summit Security, the rest moving cross-country. 4 days to cover 200 kilometers through terrain ranging from forest to mountain passes to open ground. Sarah's windborne scouts proved invaluable, using powers to detect patrol patterns and redirect search teams. By the 3rd day, they'd closed to within 10 kilometers without triggering alerts. That night, Hawk gathered team leaders for final briefing. Maps showed Cascade Lodge in topographic detail, a luxury resort built into a mountain valley, accessible by only 2 roads. Perfect for high-level negotiations, perfect for mass murder. We breach at 0700 2 hours before Protocol Omega's scheduled activation. That gives us 120 minutes to neutralize threats, secure Alphas, and expose Thorn. Questions. Ghost pointed to enhanced soldier positions. These 12 are chemically augmented. My people fought 1 and barely survived. How do we handle 12 simultaneously? Sarah stepped forward, confidence born from 3 weeks of training. Windborne powers affect enhanced soldiers same as anyone else. We can't match their strength, but we can control their environment. Create barriers they can't break. Redirect movements, remove oxygen until they pass out. That requires precision we haven't tested in combat. Then it's fortunate we're highly motivated to succeed. Rodriguez raised another concern. The Alphas. How do we convince 50 territorial leaders to trust exiled rogues and suspected terrorists? Hawk held up a data chip copy of everything Rodriguez had decrypted. We show them this. Financial records proving Thorn paid to have their predecessors assassinated. Communication logs showing coordination with corrupt officials. Medical files documenting experiments. They can choose to ignore it, but that choice will be made with full knowledge. And if they side with the Thorn anyway, then at least we gave them the choice. That's more than he ever did. The final day passed in tense preparation. Weapons checked and rechecked. Tactical gear distributed. Windborne teams practicing until movements became instinctive. By evening, 83 fighters had transformed into something resembling a cohesive unit. Hawk found Sarah at camp's edge, staring toward distant lights of Cascade Lodge. Having second thoughts, 3rd and 4th thoughts, but no alternatives. She turned to face him. Marcus, if this goes wrong, we've already discussed this. No, we haven't. We've planned tactics and logistics. We haven't talked about what happens if tomorrow is our last day. Hawk moved closer. Then I want you to know that everything I did, every choice that led us here, I do it again. Because you were worth fighting for. Truth was worth fighting for. And the future where Thorn doesn't win is worth dying for. Sarah's hand found his face. When this is over, assuming we survive, I want a life that isn't defined by running or fighting. I want mornings that don't start with tactical briefings. I want to heal people instead of preparing them for battle. Then we make that future happen, together. They kissed with desperate intensity of soldiers on the eve of battle. When they separated, the camp had grown quiet fighters settling into whatever rest they could find. Hawk didn't sleep. He spent the night reviewing plans, checking equipment, writing a final letter to be delivered to Colonel Martinez if everything went wrong. The letter detailed everything Thorn's conspiracy, the evidence they'd gathered, the names of those who'd helped and those who'd betrayed. Insurance. If they failed tomorrow, at least the truth would outlive them. Dawn came with frost and breath misting. The team assembled in silence, faces painted with determination and fear. Ghost distributed weapons. Danny had infiltrated hours earlier, was already in position. Sarah gathered her windborn for final coordination. Hawk stood before his fighters. Today we walk into the heart of power. Today we tell 50 alphas that one of their own has been murdering them for decades. Today, we stop the greatest threat pack democracy has ever faced. He paused, meeting as many eyes as he could. Some of us won't come back. That's the reality. But those who do will have earned something no one can take away the knowledge that we stood when everyone else knelt. That we fought when fighting meant certain death. That we honored the fallen by refusing to let their sacrifice be meaningless. His voice dropped to something quieter, but no less intense. For Danny Cruz, who risked everything exposing Thorne's crimes. For every wolf exiled on false charges. For every family destroyed by a system that protected monsters. For the future we're going to build from the ashes of what we burned down today. The response came as a unified roar. For the fallen, for the forgotten, for the future. They moved out in tactical formation. The approach to Cascade Lodge required crossing open terrain where concealment was impossible. But Sarah's windborn created a fog bank dense enough to hide their advance rolling down from mountains like natural phenomenon while actually being directed with supernatural precision. The outer security perimeter never saw them coming. Ghost people neutralized guards with non-lethal takedowns. Hawk had forbidden killing unless necessary. These were soldiers following orders, not architects of conspiracy. They penetrated to within 500 meters before Danny's voice crackled through radios. Charlie team in position. Ventilation controls secured. I've got eyes on nerve agent deployment system, multiple redundancies. I can disable primary and secondary, but tertiary requires physical access to a panel in the main hall. Hawk keyed his response. Copy that. We're proceeding to the hall. Be ready to move on my signal. The lodge's main building loomed ahead, glass and timber construction designed for luxury. Alphas were already arriving, limousines pulling up, security details scanning with professional paranoia. And among security details, enhanced soldiers. Hawk recognized 3 from medical files. Marcus Chen, Sarah Morrison, Jennifer Blake. Once honorable wolves, now chemically transformed. Bravo team moved into position, windborn supporting each fighter. Ghost voice came through tactical net. Enhanced targets identified, ready to engage on your mark. Rodriguez led Alpha team toward the service entrance Danny had unlocked. Sarah stayed with Hawk for Delta team's approach. Her powers already manifesting air currents, shifting to deflect attention sounds muted. They entered through maintenance corridors, moved past staff preparing for ceremonies, ascended to the mezzanine level overlooking the main hall. Below 50 regional alphas gathered in conversation, unaware they were standing in a death trap. Thorne stood near the podium dressed in formal military uniform, playing the role of concerned elder statesman. Hawk's hand tightened on his rifle. Every instinct screamed to take the shot, but that would only create alarm. The alphas needed to see the evidence first. Danny's voice urgent now. Hawk, we've got a problem. Thorne's moving up the timeline. He's activating Protocol Omega now 20 minutes early. I can't stop it. Remotely, I need that physical access. 20 minutes instead of 2 hours. The entire operation compressed into a window so narrow any hesitation would be fatal. Hawk made decisions with the speed that had kept him alive through 3 deployments. All teams execute now. Alpha present evidence. Bravo engage enhanced soldiers. Charlie get to that panel. Delta we're taking Thorne. He vaulted the mezzanine railing, dropped 3 meters, landed in a combat roll that brought him up with rifle aimed at the podium. General Marcus Thorne, you're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and crimes against pack law. The hall erupted into chaos. Alphas reaching for weapons, security details, forming protective cordons, enhanced soldiers moving with inhuman speed. Then Sarah unleashed the wind. It came as a pressure wave that knocked everyone off balance without causing injury enough to freeze the moment. Rodriguez and Alpha team rushed forward, projecting evidence files onto every screen simultaneously. Financial records, medical logs, protocol, Omega's blueprint, everything. The Alphas stared at documentation that destroyed 50 years of carefully constructed legitimacy. Alpha Montana, Marcus Reynolds processed information with military efficiency, his face transforming from confusion to horror to rage. Thorne, is this true? Did you authorize Project Silverback? Did you plan to assassinate us? Thorne's expression never changed, but his hand moved toward a device clipped to his belt. Hawk recognized it, a dead man's switch. If Thorne released it, Protocol Omega activated immediately. Everything I did was for order, for strength, for a future where packs don't tear themselves apart through democratic weakness. His voice carried across the hall with command authority. You're all too soft, too concerned with fairness and representation. The packs need strong leadership. They need someone willing to make hard choices. Reynolds stepped forward, his security detail forming up behind him. Hard choices. You murdered 47 wolves. You experimented on 200. You are going to kill all of us. To save the packs from your incompetence. Yes. The admission silenced the hall more effectively than any windblast. Thorne had just confessed to everything, and his face showed no remorse. Then he released the dead man's switch. Alarm shrieked. The ventilation system roared to life. Danny's voice cut through the tactical net, panicked now. Nerve agent deploying. I've got tertiary system access, but I need 60 seconds. You don't have 60 seconds? Sarah was already moving, hands raised, wind responding to desperate need. Everyone down. Cover your faces. She created a barrier of compressed air over ventilation outlets, preventing nerve agent from entering the hall. The strain showed immediately, veins standing out on her neck, silver marks glowing with power pushed beyond safe limits. Ghost's voice. Bravo team engaging enhanced soldiers in the corridor. We've got hostiles closing. They're trying to breach. Hawk sprinted toward Thorne, who'd drawn a sidearm with casual efficiency. They met in the center of the hall, and the world reduced to just two men who'd each chosen different definitions of honor. You should have stayed exiled, Hawthorne. Should have died quietly. You should have led with integrity instead of tyranny. Thorne's first shot went wide as Sarah's wind deflected it. Hawk closed the distance, knocked the gun away, drove his fist into Thorne's jaw with accumulated fury from weeks of exile. The general staggered but didn't fall, 70 years old, but trained, experienced, dangerous. They fought with brutal efficiency, no wasted movement. Thorne used pressure points and joint locks from decades of combat experience. Hawk countered with raw aggression born from having nothing left to lose. Around them, the battle expanded. Enhanced soldiers breached the hall, were met by ghost fighters and windborne barriers that turned their chemical strength into liability. Alphas and security details engaged Thorne's loyalists in firefights that shattered windows and tore through furnishings. Sarah maintained her barrier over ventilation outlets, but Hawk could see her failing. Blood trickled from her nose. Her legs shook. She had maybe 30 seconds before her powers gave out and nerve agent flooded the hall. Danny's voice came through, strained but determined. Got it. Tertiary system disabled, nerve agent contained. Sarah collapsed, barrier dissipating, but it didn't matter. The threat was neutralized. She'd held long enough. Hawk turned back to Thorne, who'd used the distraction to retrieve a backup weapon, a knife with a blade that gleamed silver. Actual silver, toxic to werewolf physiology. You want to talk about honor? Honor is doing what's necessary, regardless of personal cost. Thorne circled, blade ready. I saved these packs from themselves for 50 years, and you're destroying everything I built. You didn't build anything. You corrupted everything you touched. Thorne lunged faster than his age suggested possible. The blade scored across Hawk's ribs, silver burning like acid. Hawk ignored the pain, caught Thorne's wrist, used the general's momentum to throw him into a support column. Thorne hit hard enough that something cracked. He slumped to the floor, blade clattering away, face finally showing something besides control, pain, and disbelief that he'd lost. Hawk stood over him, his own knife drawn, the decision hanging in the air. One thrust would end it, end Thorne, it'd end the conspiracy, end everything that had been destroyed. But that would make him what Thorne had accused him of being, someone who chose vengeance over justice. He lowered the knife. No, you're going to stand trial. You're going to face every alpha you tried to murder. You're going to hear the names of every wolf you destroyed, and then you're going to spend the rest of your life knowing your empire died while you watched. Reynolds and 3 other alphas approached, their own weapons drawn but lowered. Colonel Hawthorne, or should I say just Hawthorne, thank you. If you hadn't warned us, we'd all be dead. Thank Lieutenant Cruz. He's the one who maintained the intelligence pipeline that made this possible. Then we thank you both, and we apologize for not seeing the truth sooner. Thorn, bleeding and broken on the floor, laughed harsh and bitter. You think this changes anything 10 years from now? Someone else will take my place. Someone smarter. Someone who doesn't get caught. Because the packs need order, and democracy is just chaos with paperwork. Reynolds crouched down, face inches from Thorn's. Maybe, but at least we'll face that threat with eyes open. At least we'll choose our own path instead of having it forced on us by a tyrant who thought he knew better than everyone else. He gestured to security. Take him into custody, full restraints. I want guards on him every second until trial. They dragged Thorn away, and with him went 50 years of shadow control. The hall gradually quieted as enhanced soldiers were subdued, some killed in fighting. Others surrendered once they realized their commander was captured. Elena Rivers was among the surrendered, her chemically altered eyes clearing as withdrawal began. The experimental compound Rodriguez had used should have killed her, but her enhanced metabolism had processed the toxin overnight, leaving her alive but broken, the chemical dependence finally cracking her loyalty to Thorn. She looked at Hawk with something that might have been recognition or might have been regret, then allowed herself to be restrained without resistance. Sarah recovered enough to walk supported by two Windborn who'd fought beside her. Rodriguez organized casualty reports. Ghost coordinated the sympathetic alphas to establish security perimeter. Danny emerged from ventilation access covered in soot but grinning with exhausted triumph. We did it, actually did it. Hawk surveyed the damaged hall, the wounded fighters, the alphas already arguing about what came next. Reynolds called for order. This summit is hereby reconvened under emergency protocols. First order addressing accusations against General Thorn and determining what structural changes are needed to prevent such abuse in the future. Hawk started to leave his role finished, but Reynolds stopped him. Colonel Hawthorne, the council requests your presence. We need to discuss your reinstatement, the pardoning of your people, and your input on reforms. With respect, sir, I'm not a colonel anymore. Just a wolf who did what needed doing. The rank was taken illegally under false charges. It can be restored just as quickly. Reynolds paused. But if you'd prefer to remain simply a concerned citizen, that's your choice. Either way, we'd value your perspective. Hawk looked at Sarah, at Danny, at Ghost, and his fighters who'd risked everything. I'll help however I can, but the people you really need to talk to are the ones Thorn exiled. They're the ones who survived his purges. They're the ones who know what needs to change. Reynolds nodded slowly. Then bring them in. All of them. Let's build something better than what we had. Hawk stood in the same hall, now repaired and serving its original purpose, a place for dialogue instead of death. The Regional Alpha Council had expanded to include representatives from rogue communities and Windborn networks. Democracy messy and complicated and infinitely preferable to tyranny. Thorn's trial had lasted 3 weeks. The verdict was unanimous. Life imprisonment stripped of all honors, his name removed from pack history except his cautionary tale. Elena Rivers and the other enhanced soldiers received medical treatment and psychological evaluation. Some recovered their humanity. Others remained too damaged. None were held responsible for crimes committed under Thorn's control. The Deadlands were officially recognized as autonomous territory. Ghost officially, Captain James Vale again, though he still preferred the nickname, led negotiations that gave exiled wolves the option to return or remain independent. Most chose to stay, having built something valuable in wilderness. Sarah established a Windborn training facility, teaching descendants how to control powers that had been hidden for generations. No more shame, no more fear, just integration as equals. Danny received commendation for his intelligence work was offered, a promotion to captain accepted on condition he could remain field active. And Hawk Reynolds had offered him command of a newly formed oversight committee, making sure no general ever accumulated Thorn's level of unchecked power. He'd accepted not because he wanted authority, but because someone had to prevent history from repeating. Sarah found him on the mezzanine watching council proceedings below. You're brooding. That's never a good sign. Just thinking about everyone we lost getting here. They'd be proud of what we built. It's not perfect, but it's honest. That has to count for something. Hawk's arm found her waist, pulled her close. It counts for everything. Below, the Alphas argued about territorial boundaries and resource allocation and a dozen other topics that would have been resolved by Thorn's fiat, but now required negotiation and compromise. Messy, complicated, democratic, beautiful in its own way. Ghost appeared at the mezzanine entrance, scarred face splitting into a rare grin. Council's asking for you. Something about establishing protocols for joint operations. Figured you'd want to weigh in. They're not going to screw it up. They're just going to argue until they find something everyone can live with. That's what I meant by screwing it up. Way too much talk. Sarah laughed. Welcome to democracy, Captain. It's inefficient, frustrating, and absolutely necessary. Ghost shook his head, but was smiling. You know what I think I prefer dictatorship. At least that was simple. You don't mean that. No, but I'm allowed to complain. They descended together to join the council, three wolves who'd survived exile and war and betrayal, now helping build a future where such survival wouldn't be necessary. As they entered the hall, Hawk caught sight of a memorial wall being installed near the entrance. 47 names carved in stone. Wolves Thorn had destroyed their stories, now told truthfully. Marcus Webb topped the list. The first rogue ghost had lost to Thorn's purges. Beside it, Sarah's grandmother's name. Others Hawk recognized from the files. Danny stood beside the wall, staring at names that could have included his own if Garrett's help hadn't come through. He touched the stone, silent promise to those who hadn't escaped. Hawk joined him, placed his hand on the carving. Mission accomplished, brother. The future's secure. Danny nodded, eyes still on the wall. Semper Fi, always faithful. Then they joined the others, ready to do the work that kept promises to the dead by serving the living. The war was over. The real work was just beginning. And this time they'd build something worth defending.